Welcome everyone to this session on powering up synergies, industrial heat pumps and district heating and cooling for system integration. Welcome to those both in the room and those online today. My name's Philippa Nuttall. I'm editor of Sustainable Views, which is a business-to-business publication from the Financial Times. So just in case anybody's not aware, though I'm sure you're experts about what we're talking about today, heating and cooling accounts for half of the EU's final energy consumption, with around 75% currently reliant on fossil fuels. So transitioning this sector is therefore essential to achieving climate goals and energy security, and industrial heat pumps and DHC systems are pivotal solutions in this transition. Further, beyond decarbonisation, these technologies offer significant flexibility to the energy system and help mitigate the need for extensive grid capacity development and investment. They can also significantly improve energy system integration by making use of underused energy sources such as industrial and tertiary waste heat. So far, so good. But there's still a long way to go before any of this vision becomes reality and certainly widely used. So in this session, led by the wonderful panel of experts that we have with us, we're going to look at how to unlock this flexibility through innovation in technology and business models, and also through supportive policy making. So with us today, we have Marco Baresi, who is the Institutional Affairs and Marketing Director at the Italian heat pump company Turboden. We have Prit Coit, who's the Group Chief Executive Director at Utilitas. Chris Roslow, Senior Energy Analyst at the energy think tank EMBA, and Anna Sturck, Member of the European Parliament with Renew Europe. Unfortunately, Anne Weidenbach from Dan Jorgensen's cabinet can't be with us today, but we have a policymaker here, so we will ask our questions still. So to kick us off today, we're going to check that you in the audience are all still awake. It is quite hot in this room, so I hope everybody's okay. And we're going to ask you a couple of questions. So you should be able to check the questions using your phones, using Slido. So hopefully you've all got it downloaded. I think you can click the QR code if you've not done so already. And so the questions you're going to be asked. One, how familiar are you with industrial heat pumps and district heating and cooling? And you have various answers there. Very familiar. You understand the basics. You've heard of them but don't know much. Heard of industrial heat pumps but not of district heating and cooling networks. You've heard of district heating and cooling networks but not of industrial heat pumps. We have industrial twice both times. So we're affirming we're talking about industrial heat pumps. I'll just give everybody online a couple of seconds to answer because I think there's a bit of a delay. So I think clearly everybody in this room is an expert, basically. So 53% are very familiar or they work with them. So definitely a very good audience today. The second question we have is, in your view, what's the main benefit of integrating industrial heat pumps with DHC? So energy efficiency, lower emissions, grid flexibility, sector integration, or cost savings? It's a word cloud, yeah. So hopefully some nice words cloud will appear on the screen in a minute and we can see what you all think. I see people typing furiously. So, flexibility. Just give it another minute or two since it seems to be bouncing all over the place. So there we go. I think energy efficiency is the clear winner there. Flexibility and efficiency have also come out as strong contenders. Decarbonisation, synergies, sector integration, grid flexibility are also there in third place. So lots of benefits from integrating industrial heat pumps with district heating and cooling. So we have a little bit of information. Speakers, we know we've got lots of experts in the room. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Chris Roslow, who is the Senior Energy Analyst, as we said, at the think tank EMBA. And his presentation is going to be looking at two studies that he's recently been involved in, looking at the question of flexibility. Chris, do you want to take the floor? Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here today. So I'm going to kick us off, I think, by giving a slightly higher level view of flexibility, why we need it in the power system, and finishing with the role of industrial heat pumps and district heating in providing that flexibility. So as the slide says, I'm going to try and make the case for more clean flexibility in the European power system. I want to start by just really zooming back out to the whole power system and saying that renewables have been a massive success story in Europe. We can see from this chart taken from our annual electricity review that last year solar overtook coal, the latest in one of several milestones in the European power system. But building more renewables alone will not continue this success story in Europe, and it won't continue to give us the security and competitiveness benefits of that transition. So we think we need to do two main things now to keep this show on the road. One is to grow more clean flexibility in Europe's power system. And the second is to electrify as much as we can, electrify everything. And I think industrial heat pumps play a really important role in obviously both of these two priorities going forward. And why do we need all this flexibility now? What's happened recently? Why are we not just talking about clean power, renewables? Why are we suddenly all talking about flexibility? Well, I think this chart shows things quite nicely. This basically looks at the amount of wind and solar in 12, I think, European power markets on an hourly basis. So renewables are now around 50% of EU electricity on an annual basis, but we're seeing in some countries, in some regions, wind and solar are really reaching very high penetration levels. For example, in the Netherlands, what this chart shows is in half of hours in the Netherlands, we have wind and solar producing half or more of electricity. So really, really high penetrations. And as a result of that, we're seeing an increase in negative prices and low prices, which is a really obvious, clear signal for flexibility. Any technology that can take advantage of low or negative prices and shift things around will benefit hugely from that. So that's why we need clean flexibility. But what actually is clean flexibility? What are our options here? And I think we've come up with this really handy guide, if you're not sure, which is basically based around these 4 S's. Industrial heat pumps will come into one of these, but I want to start just by giving a kind of more broader picture of flexibility and what we can do to improve the situation. So first of all, we can share electricity, which means basically building more interconnections between countries and spreading out abundant renewables through increased grid infrastructure. Secondly, with supply, we need our sources of supply on the power system to be increasingly flexible. But now this is where we come to the topic of today. The other two S's here, we've got store. And for those who are paying attention, you'll notice that I intentionally missed off district heating networks from this list of storage technologies. Please forgive me. That was just a test, I promise. But that is a form of storage we should take advantage of. The other one being shift, of course, through demand flexibility. So we need to be shifting more demand on our whole energy system so that it coincides more precisely with when renewable energy is producing and is very abundant, and obviously prices being low at those times. So those are the kind of 4 S's of power system flexibility, to give a kind of a brief overview. So how much do we need is the next question. You'll see this study going around quite a lot, that we need to double flexibility in the EU by 2030 in order to effectively integrate all the renewables that the EU plans to build by that time. That's a simple message. If we go to the next level of detail in that, we actually most urgently need flexibility that acts on short timescales, so within days, across hours. Those are the needs that are coming to us most urgently. So this is not about dealing with weeks where we have low wind or balancing energy between seasons. This is actually mainly driven by the really rapid increase in solar power, which has obviously huge variations within days. We need flexibility in the power system now to match that variation and give us more flexibility within days. That's the most urgent need in our opinion. And I just want to highlight that batteries, storage, and demand flexibility, which we're here to talk about, are really the two key technology solutions to meet that challenge because they're ready now. We can literally, they're mature, we know how to do them, we just need to basically get on with it and do them. And why are we bothering with this whole electrification, flexibility? It all sounds quite complicated, doesn't it? Like, is there really any benefit to all this? Well, this is the kind of picture that I'd like to kind of imprint in your minds from this, from my presentation. Is there's a really great opportunity for us here to create a feedback loop, which will result in the EU having more sustainable energy, cheaper energy, and more secure energy. And this is how I see all those elements kind of fitting together. So the more we electrify, if we do that in a smart way, we create opportunities for demand flexibility, we can integrate more renewables, demand flexibility will mitigate the need for building more grids and also reduce balancing costs, both of which lead to lower electricity prices, which then obviously incentivize more electrification. So this is kind of a, if we can get this cycle turning, then that's the stuff of dreams. You know, we're really rocking in that case. And I just want to finish on, before I hand over to the real experts on industrial heat pumps, because you might be able to tell that I'm not exactly one of those. But these, when I was preparing for this session, these are the kind of key facts that jumped out to me on industrial heat pumps. I think a speaker in the previous session said you don't change people's minds with facts, but I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to inform you about heat pumps a little bit here. So there's a lot of fossil fuels in the industrial energy consumption. A lot of that is going towards process heat, which is exactly where large heat pumps come in. So basically there's a huge slice of fossil fuel consumption that is ready to be replaced by industrial heat pumps. Industrial heat pumps, these figures by the Heat Pump Association suggest that there's potential to expand 100-fold based on what's currently used, which is obviously a huge expansion potential with lots of flexibility potentially to come with it. In district heating, there's also roughly a 10 times potential to increase based on what we have already. Numbers by the JRC see capacity expanding tenfold on district heating systems. And the market share is expected to really increase quite dramatically as well. McKinsey estimate that 20% of industrial process heat could be from industrial heat pumps by 2030, I think, compared to a much smaller fraction today. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of the size of the challenge, the potential we're talking about here, and why we've been bothering in the first place, the need for more flexibility in the power system. And I think that's all from me. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris. That was very good, and time-wise, you were excellent. Just 17 seconds over, so we'll allow you that, I think. Next, we're going to hear from Marco Bressi from Turbodun. Marco. And Marco is going to talk to us about the interactions between industrial heat pumps and district heating and cooling.
Yes. Good afternoon. When I asked Copilot the 10 most diffuse words related to industrial heat pumps, flexibility, power grids, district heating, I was a little bit surprised. But after the Slido today, I understand that human knowledge here is better than artificial intelligence question. Because energy efficiency, it was mentioned. It was not mentioned in the 10 most diffuse words. And so I asked it, why? Have you found also energy efficiency? And the reply is you can easily be included in the top 10, potentially replacing a more general term like efficiency in energy efficiency. What does it mean? We are discussing in these days during this policy conference about the diffusion of electrification of heat, transport, and also for the data center expected. So the needs of electricity will be more higher than expected. So in my opinion, the first political message here is we need to push strongly on energy efficiency, so to reduce the consumption of electricity. We need to reduce the specific consumption, and so energy efficiency first is the mantra. Talking about energy efficiency technologies, heat pump is, of course, one of the most efficient technology for producing heat. This is an exercise we have done here in Turboden. Basically, considering cost of gas in terms of $50 for standard cubic meter. On the y-axis, we have the levelized cost of heat, so the cost for generation of heat. And on the x-axis we have the cost of electricity. So currently the heat pump, the introduction of heat pump is the most efficient technology to produce heat compared, for example, with a natural gas boiler. Depending of the COP, I've seen also from slide that the people here are more knowledge about industrial heat pump. So the COP is the coefficient of performance. It means COP 5. It means that you need 1 unit of electricity to generate 5 units of heat, for example. So, and you can see here that one of the main topic related to the heat pump is the electricity price. So if you can see, higher the electricity price, lower the competitiveness of the industrial heat pump. Here, we in Turboden are focused on the industrial heat pump, so large size and high temperature heat pump. Basically, an heat pump has two main sources in input, so we are talking about low temperature heat or residual stream and electricity, and the output is higher temperature heat. And so you inject electricity to obtain higher temperature heat for industrial processes, for district heating, also for carbon capture technologies, because we can put industrial heat pump in carbon capture technologies, replacing, for example, the small part related to the gas boiler present in the carbon capture. Going back to a real case, this is an industrial application of heat pump in operation since 2023. And starting from a cooling water at 75 degrees, thanks to the industrial heat pump injecting electricity, we arrive at 120 degrees, up to 120 degrees for the district heating network in the city of Brescia. We have made some tests related to the topic of flexibility, and please take attention to the chart below. Heat pump is able to can be stopped in 5 seconds, normal stop, and start up from island mode, so it means hot start to arrive at nominal load 100% in less than 5 minutes. And it is also possible power gradient in operation up and down. You can see from 20% load to 93% load, or to 100% to 27 in basically in 1 minute, in 60 seconds. So what we prove is industrial heat pump is a possible tool for flexibility. And why is so important? We have seen this case related the application of recovering waste heat in industrial application. This is a chart from Euro Heat and Power. There is a huge potential of waste heat from industrial processes. We are talking about more than 2,000 terawatt hour per year equivalent. So it needs that there is a huge potential of waste heat available to be valorized at European level. This is another example related to the industry. So is a paper mill in Finland that will be in operation in June, so in the next days. And in these cases, we start from a low temperature stream at 70 degrees and we arrive at 170 degrees, delivering steam for the paper mill production. Also thanks to the industrial heat pumps in combination with mechanical vapor recompression. In this case, the flexibility must be studied integrated with the industrial processes, because in the first case we've discussed the district heating. District heating can act as a buffer for the project, and the colleague after me explained better. In this case, you have to integrate the industrial processes, and so we need other tools. What we learn about large heat pump and grid balance. The third point could be of interest. Battery storage offer a chemical solution for balancing power. We have seen also from Amber. But it means significant environmental impacts and also cost. Alternative storage systems are under development, like thermal storage, gravity storage, or pressure. And I forgot to mention, for example, hydrogen. But enhanced grid integration with industrial heating process offer cost-effective and rapid deployment path. In this context, large heat pump can play a key role when integrated into district heating or buffer thermal system. And we have seen we can also act for fast response, balancing power, both up and down. Okay, last slide from my side. How to scale up? What we need to increase that from a manufacturer point of view. I mentioned energy efficiency. Okay, energy efficiency must be at high level in political debate, political agenda, but also clean flexibility. Clean flexibility that must be incentivized and remunerated in order to boost the flexibility. We understand from the panel before that it is not a boost for the installation of a heat pump, but could be an help for the normal operation, for the operation of the heat pump. And also we have several dossiers under discussion: heating and cooling strategy, electrification action plan, or grid package that can take district heating and cooling and industrial heat pump deployment into consideration, and to be part of the debate. Related to the grid package, for example, it means that we need a task on flexibility provided by industrial heat pump and district heating systems. But also, we underlined from the other slide, high electricity taxes and network tariffs are detrimental for the huge penetration of industrial heat pump. Last point related to the Net Zero Industry Act, we have a strong role as a European manufacturer, but also it's a huge opportunity for Europe itself, because we can cover the industrial heat pump application for European market, but also for foreign markets. So this is another message. We have a strong role for EU manufacturing in the Net Zero Industry Act. Okay, that's all from my side.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
Super. So we've now seen various examples of the use of industrial heat pumps, and now Priti's going to talk to us more specifically about what's actually happening in Tallinn.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to share our practical examples on the decarbonization journey. I mean, it's obviously an important goal, not just from climate perspective, but also because of the energy security, and of course being able to provide competitive pricing for our customers. Trying to cope with these. Okay, yeah. District heating, it is the dominant mode of heating urban areas in Estonia. In Tallinn, it's more than 70% of the buildings are connected. So obviously, whatever we do there has a large impact. And Utilitas is the largest district heating operator in the country. And we're also producing wind and solar power, and installing storage systems in the other Baltic countries as well. So all our district heating networks are efficient district heating and cooling systems as defined in the European Energy Efficiency Directive. And this directive has been an important measure in increasing or guiding us and the entire industry to guide us towards increasing renewable and waste heat in the industry. So it has been an important measure, and we set out in our decarbonization path already more than a decade ago. So the graph shows where we've been. In 2008, it was primarily fossil. For example, Tallinn was fully gas-based district heating system. So what we've done meanwhile, we've added biomass CHPs, we've added waste-to-energy plants, and that has taken us to a fairly low carbon emission level already. So we've decarbonized by 65%. But then in 2022, when full-blown Russian attack on Ukraine happened, we looked at what would be the best ways to proceed in this journey. What would be the fastest way to complete the decarbonization path and minimize the share of imported fuels in our district heating systems. So we selected large-scale heat pumps for that purpose. I will talk a bit on these specific examples later. But you see on the slide as well what we've done. Meanwhile, we have renovated the networks heavily. So we have strived to decrease the flow temperature in the system. We've been successful in that. We are now on average around 80 degrees flow temperature throughout the year, which means that it's perfect for integration of lower temperature sources like heat pumps to the system. We're also and already have added electric boilers. We've added are building thermal heat storages, i.e. larger hot water tanks, and we're also building wind farms and other matters. So the aim that has also been verified via Science-Based Target Initiative is to decrease the share of fossil fuels below 5% by the end of the decade, and essentially have a carbon emission below 10 grams per kilowatt hour. So two examples on large-scale industrial heat pumps and how we've integrated them to our system. That's a picture of our Vau energy complex in Tallinn that supplies heat from high-efficiency district heating plants using biomass as the fuel. So what we did, we installed heat pumps with 24 megawatt thermal capacity in order to work in combination with second stage flue gas condensers, which means that the flue gases that leave the plants are cooled down to roughly 20 degrees, and we need also heat pumps in order to make full use of this energy and to increase the flow temperature to what can be used in district heating. So what as a result, and that was a quick addition as well. So something that we set out in 2022, and these are fully operational already, and we've been able to replace more than 100,000 megawatt hours of gas-fired heat in the system, because we've added that to the other CHP plants as well. So a major step, and something that cannot be done without heat pumps. It's actually a good site for sector integration overall. So we've also just commissioning the heat storage over there. Then adding the waste heat from the hydrogen production will also be used in district heating in the system. The second opportunity is obviously to make use of heat sources which would not otherwise be usable for district heating purposes in new locations. So we are building a wastewater and seawater heat pump next to Tallinn wastewater treatment plant. 110 megawatts of thermal capacity and expected production of more than 400,000 megawatt hours per year. We combined wastewater and seawater in order to maximize the potential in wastewater, because wastewater, obviously the flow fluctuates daily, and in combination with seawater we can make maximum use of the facilities that we build. So a good example. So it will be up and running end of next year, and by that we have taken the share of fossil fuels in Tallinn below 10%. And actually, all these heat pumps have helped us to reduce consumption of heat which was earlier produced from gas by 500,000 megawatt hours each year. We are also mindful of the effect that the addition of new heat pumps are having on the system. So, of course, we need more green electricity in order to supply those. So that's why we have also set out that we have been producing green electricity earlier, but we are also as a group adding new wind farms and solar panels so that the net electricity supplied would always be positive. So we won't cannibalize the electricity for heat production purposes. And at the same time, we are making full use of the possibilities in the grid balancing. We are active in the frequency reserve markets. We can do that both with the heat pumps. We can do that both with electric boilers, and an important part there is also the additional thermal storages that we've added, so that we can indeed be quick, and we have the buffer to store the electricity or the heat that we generate from electricity in the favorable priced hours. And of course, the challenges that we've had, these are related to the planning and permitting. As usual, it's easier for the on-site. The vow site was easier. The new premises are always a bit more difficult. So let's say planning and permitting is probably among the most important ones. But of course, the grid tariffs, which are on the way of electrification anywhere, and which would need to be reviewed. So, for example, if we build a wind farm somewhere which is supplying the electricity for the heat pumps, then it would not be a punitive tariff regime meanwhile. So that's an element to be looked after. But I think the model where we have a lot of facilities or a lot of production capacities fueling into the district heating system, an efficient district heating system, is probably a good example of how we can handle the decarbonization throughout Europe. There's no single silver bullet in decarbonization or energy security or competitive pricing, but I think heat pumps clearly we expect them to be one of the bullets that we need to tackle this challenge. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So plenty of food for thought there from our first three speakers. So the challenge still remains, obviously, is how we scale this up, and we're going to discuss that in a minute during the panel discussion. Before we do that, you have to do a little bit more work again. So we've got two more Slido questions for you. The first one is, what is the biggest challenge to scaling up integrated DHC in industrial heat pump systems? Is it high upfront costs, a lack of local planning, insufficient policy support, or lack of awareness? And you can tick various, I think. Oh, just one. Sorry, you can only tick one. It's a very tight race here. No, still moving. I was going to announce the result, but it doesn't. People seem to be either changing their minds, or people online are still voting. So I think there it seems to be good. So the main challenge are high upfront costs, and followed by a lack of local planning, and that's obviously something that Priti just mentioned as well. Is the planning and permitting angle, which we can pick up again in the panel discussion. And so the second question: which of the following would most accelerate DHC and heat pump integration in Europe? Would it be clear EU-level policy frameworks, national funding and subsidies, local government planning, industry-government coordination, or public awareness campaigns? It's all very exciting, isn't it? Has everybody voted? Yep, so once again, planning is clearly what we need to do more on. Local infrastructure planning is clearly out there as the winner, followed by industry government coordination. Thank you everybody for participating. That's great. So we're now going to move to the panel discussion. And so to kick us off, I'd like to ask Anna, who is a member of the European Parliament, working on these issues, because she's not spoken before, so I'll give you the first word, and perhaps you could respond to anything in particular that stood out from the first three speakers, and also from your point of view working on the policies around this. And Marco mentioned various policies that are obviously the Commission and the Parliament are working on at the moment. You know, where do you see the greatest untapped opportunity to really enable more flexibility within the EU system?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for those presentations. I think there's a lot of food for thought in there. I also feel like I'm kind of here with three hats in a way. We just spoke before the panel started. I'm a consumer. I have district heating myself. I was very surprised when I said it, everyone's eyes kind of lit up. While we're not quite at the Tallinn level, my hometown Vienna, it's actually becoming quite usual to be heating with district heating. So I was surprised about the surprise, but so on the one hand, I'm a consumer, I guess. On the other hand, and I'm quite pleased that there was a lot of local planning or local coordination on these slides and in these answers. Just until 1 week ago, I was a district representative within Vienna, so one of the smaller districts. So questions of rollout of district heating, these kind of issues were very much at the heart of what we were doing. But then the third hat, obviously, my relatively new role within the European Parliament, where I think it is important, and we saw the European policy didn't come up quite as much, but I think there's a lot that we can tap into now. as I said, I think if you're asking me to respond to what I just heard, I think on one hand it was just a very interesting input. I mean, I'm very impressed with the example of Tallinn. Maybe we can have a chat about a little bit later, because as I said, I mean, as the city of Vienna, we are currently in the process of trying to get to where you are already getting out of gas. Question of how can we decommission, how can we actually make sure that we are less reliant and ideally completely out of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. So there's a lot I think we can learn from there. But maybe what is important, and I think what came out of everything that we heard now, is that it is a manifold question, and it is a question that when we talk about sector coupling and using synergies, which is our headline today, that is the big driver and the big importance. And I think that's also kind of where some of the problems come in, because especially when we talk about policy and politics, we like to think in silos, we like to think in our expertise, we like to have the European Union do this thing, the national level do this thing, and the local level do another thing. And I am of the full understanding that it can only work and we can only receive what is the right word? Get to a place where we have ideally full electrification. I like to electrify everything. Where we have net zero when we work together on all levels, and that is including. And I was very pleased as well to see the industry government coordination, although I'd maybe dare to question whether government is the right word there, because I don't think there should be industry-government coordination. There should be industry coordination in terms of energy industry working with other forms of industry, regulators working together with industry to see how we can get the most efficient planning. But I think, obviously, I don't need to explain this to you guys because you just explained it to us, but I agree 100%. And I think the main issue that we need to tackle is the question of planning and how we can get to a sector integrated planning that makes sure that we work more efficiently, that we work in an integrated way, and make sure that we have the most efficient system possible. And maybe just if you allow me one last mention, I think what's important, and it came out of all your presentations really, I think while the question of public awareness wasn't really an issue for anyone here in the room, I still think that the question of how we communicate about this transition is of the utmost importance. And I think when we talk about the question of flexibility, for example, I think it's important that we don't just say we need flexibility to integrate the renewables. Because if I'm not a fan of renewables, I don't care about flexibility. But flexibility gives us so much more. And you showed us that in that cycle. It is about lowering prices. It is about using efficiency. It is about innovation at the end of the day. And I think that is something that we need to focus on more in our communication. It's not just about the end of renewables, because renewables aren't an end in itself. It's a means to getting to that place. And I think that's an important aspect that we need to, particularly from politics point of view, keep in mind.
Super, thank you. And yeah, your communication point is good. I was at a different event this morning, and one of the pieces of policy that Marco mentioned is the Industrial Accelerator, the Industrial Decarbonisation Accelerator Act. And one of your colleagues in the Parliament said that was the worst title ever, and nobody, normal person would have a clue as to what that said, and it should be changed immediately. So yeah, communication to the public, clearly, if things are going to change, is obviously important. Chris, I wanted to come back to you. You said demand flexibility in battery storage. We just need to get on and do it. Which sounds like a very good northern British thing to say. But what perhaps you can explain a bit more? What do we need to be able to just get on and do it? And in policy terms, are there certain things which are still lacking, or is it just a question of implementation or finance?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think maybe I could start by talking about planning, since we're on that topic. But I've got kind of four main areas that I would say key things to do to remove barriers and accelerate progress. On planning, I think demand flexibility in general has been neglected from energy planning for a long time. Hopefully that's changing now, but that's something that definitely needs to change. On the connection between the kind of European level, national level, and local planning, I found that really interesting. That's actually new for me that came up as at the top of the list there in terms of barriers. I've spent more time than you would care to imagine looking at energy scenarios, energy plans for the EU level, for national level. But it's even then not clear to me how the national level and local level connect when it comes to energy planning. And I think very few people probably understand how that all works. We need technical people there who can really join the dots and join those processes together. So that's what I'd say about planning. Also, we've got the electricity market reforms of 2 years ago, introduced a really important new process called the Flexibility Needs Assessment, which we'll be getting from member states in 2026. And again, we really need demand flexibility to be fully represented in those needs assessments, and we need the potential of it to be recognised. And on the potential for demand flexibility, I would really make a plea for open data on this topic. Maybe to our host Stephen at the Heat Pump Association. When I was getting ready for this presentation, I actually found it quite hard to understand to know how many industrial heat pumps are actually in Europe at the moment, and what flexibility are they currently providing? What can they provide? I loved the graph that Marco showing the actual real-time flexibility of a large heat pump in practice. I've not seen that before. That was really cool. If they can all do that, then there's lots of potential there. So open data feeding into better planning, definitely. 2 more areas if I could. Market access is something that I hear quite a lot in conversations around demand flexibility. So I think in some member states, even though the 2019 regulations said that we needed to have legal frameworks for demand flexibility, a lot of member states either haven't done that or they have done that on paper, but in practice, there really still isn't a good kind of market access for demand flexibility, including large heat pumps. Things like capacity mechanisms are overly restrictive when it comes to demand flexibility. So putting too many rules and restrictive parameters around demand flexibility, participating in things like capacity mechanisms. Same for ancillary services. And we need to make it just in general also easier for things like large heat pumps or aggregators who gather together lots of demand flexibility from large heat pumps and other sources of demand, for them to participate in just more markets in general, including in wholesale markets as well. So that's a whole kind of bunch of things on market access. And finally, I would like to talk briefly about electricity prices and the upcoming electrification action plan that we'll have early next year, I think, from the Commission. We think that should very much be a smart electrification action plan, which means not just electrifying for the sake of having more electricity demand or having more renewables, like you're saying, but actually ending up with a more efficient and smarter system. So it's about incentivizing electrification, lowering electricity prices as much as possible, but also doing that in a smart way. So, a practical example might be you could discount network charges for certain industries as a way to reduce electricity prices. But instead, we could also do that in a smart way. We could target that towards industries that are ready to electrify and that have the biggest flexibility potential. That way we would get to flexibility more quickly, which is what we really need to do. That's just one example, but I think there are many ways in which we can think about how to take all the levers we know about for electrification and make sure they're incentivizing the right kind of electrification that will increase flexibility.
Thanks, Chris. And just on that final point, is that we've talked a lot about national, regional, local level. Is that something that should be happening at, who should be responsible for that kind of action?
On electricity prices and tariffs, and I think most of those decisions are at the national level now. Yeah. We have the Affordable Energy Action Plan, which strongly recommended, lowering electricity prices, doing a lot of things that we would agree with, a lot of clever things, smart things on things like tariffs. But yeah, it is ultimately a national level decision to get that done.
Okay, thanks. And Marco, I wanted to come back to a couple of things you said. You emphasised the need for the energy efficiency first principle to scale up. I think your microphone just comes on when you speak.
Yes.
Clever. And we've been talking about energy efficiency for years. I mean, renewables in the EU have obviously ramped up, but energy efficiency still feels like the poor brother or sister that never quite gets the attention it needs. Do you think that's changing? It has changed, or how do you change that? I mean, are the policies that the Commission's looking at, or the EU in general is looking at, going to change that, or is it still a struggle?
I was here also yesterday, and I had the possibility to attend the meetings in the conference. Energy efficiency is a key word. Tomorrow there will be International Energy Agency, a couple of days dedicated to energy efficiency.
We're good at talking about it, but I'm not sure anything's...
Sorry?
I said we're very good at talking about it, but is it really
yes,
sort of
in real
policy?
Things, we manufacture since 45 years technologies for energy efficiency and for renewable. If I have in mind, for example, the industrial waste heat recovery, we have a specific application using turbines to recovering waste heat to generate power. And during the meetings in Paris, I showed our applications. But basically, in the last 15 years, we realized 45 plants. It means 3 plants per year, despite the potential of hundreds plants per year. So it means that at the end of the story, things most probably are changing, but I'm hearing about energy efficiency first since a long time. In my opinion, another Italian more knowledge than me tell it's time to react. So in my opinion, we have to go deeper and to do things to react. And there are some possibilities. So it's not only a political or from the policy point of view, but mainly, in my opinion, is from the policy point of view. We need some policy in order to stronger the energy efficiency applications on the ground.
Okay. And in terms of you came out with a list of a lot of policies that are being worked on at the moment in the EU, from the Electricity Action Plan, the Industrial Decarbonisation Accelerator, Net Zero, etc., etc. There's a lot going on at the moment. Do you get the feeling that it's moving the policies around district heating, industrial heat pumps in the right direction, or are there pieces of the puzzle that you still feel either are missing or it's not coherent as a whole?
I'm positive by nature, so I think technology are there, and we show that manufacturer capability also are there, and energy efficiency technologies is an opportunity for Europe, because currently is not China dominated yet, the supply chain. So we have an advantage. When I think about Europe, I think about the house of the technologies for the energy efficiency. But I have 2 main concerns. The first one is timing. Last Commission discussed about heat pump action plan, but at the end of the story, we are at the middle of 2025, and the heating and cooling strategy is expected to be published in beginning of 2026. So, in my opinion, we have no time to lose, other time to lose. And the second point is related, the second possible concern is related to the allocation of resources. We discussed it also in the panel before. Clean industrial deal is less cool than defense, for example, at the current stage. So if you have limited money available and you address the money for defense and not for that, in my opinion, could be a damage. But why is so important to address policies and money to energy efficiency? Because from the manufacturer point of view, because we have opportunity to create green jobs, to accelerate the development of technologies that I told you is the supply chain is European and not China dominated yet. And of course, is an opportunity for the competitiveness of the industry, because if you apply this competitive this energy efficiency, there's efficient technology, you are more competitive on the ground. And also from the manufacturer perspective, we are currently exporting our energy efficiency heat pumps or turbines in 52 countries. So it's an opportunity for Europe, for foreign market, but for domestic market, but also for foreign market.
Great, thank you. And in terms of what's happened in Tallinn, I mean, it seems very, very impressive, the change that you've brought there. We've heard about high upfront costs and planning as being the two of the issues that in terms of creating the change you've created in Tallinn. Perhaps you could explain to us a little bit more. I mean, I don't know how you financed what happened in Tallinn, and also in terms of planning, have you come across issues and how have you been able to solve them?
Maybe to first comment on what Marco was saying on energy efficiency. So I think well, district heating and heat pumps, they're both all about energy efficiency. To illustrate, roughly, I think we're wasting in Europe in industrial processes, energy generation, more heat than we need to heat all the buildings in Europe. So, but we need sources to connect those. We need district heating in order to take the heat that's being cooled down somewhere and then this to be used in the building. So to avoid using new primary energy for that. And in very, very many instances, the heat is not usable directly for heating buildings, so that's where we need heat pumps. So in a combination, that's all about it. But I think the example in Tallinn, the CHPs, where we've added the second stage flue gas condensers and heat pumps, so the efficiency on lower heating value basis is 100%. So we're getting 3 times more megawatt hours of useful heat and electricity from the same pile of wood chips compared to what we would be getting in a remote condensing mode electricity power station, 3 times more. So it's all about energy efficiency, and but we wouldn't be able to get the maximum out of it without the help of heat pumps. So I think it's the concept is there, and because Europe is scarce in our own energy resources, we need to make sure that we get all of those sources done. To answer your question on financing and planning. Maybe on planning first, of course, it's all the new additions have to go through their regular planning processes, and then of course we are in very good partnership with the municipality, but there are just certain procedures that need to be taken. So what we actually used quite a bit in explanation was the EU regulation adopted in 2022 on laying down a framework to accelerate the deployment of renewable energy. So we use that quite a bit, which means that for such heat pumps, the permit should have been given in 1 month. Obviously, it never happened. Sort of, you never get it in 1 month, but it helped us because it was directly applicable. It helped us to explain that it's an important matter also on a European context, so not just locally. So there are things that can actually be used, and I understand it's running out. End of June currently this one, but it has been extended. But methods like this, which help us and to also persuade that this is a good thing. This is which way Europe is heading. That's a common approach. So communication-wise, it also makes a lot of sense. And investment-wise, of course, it's well, if we I fully agree that renewables is the cheapest source. So if we are and import it fossil fuels, that's the most expensive one. So there are times when we can be disillusioned by very cheap gas prices, but ultimately we this will not be the long time solution. So we need to move away. So let's say it's the new additions there. it's a different structure. The investments are larger compared to a gas-fired boiler house, of course, but the operating costs are lower. And particularly if you're able to be flexible and target the lower-priced electricity hours, and if you have the entire package, and if you have the digital tools on that to operate on that, so it's much more complicated to run a system like that. But it's also beneficial, and because district heating is also, it's a regulated industry in Estonia, so the prices are regulated, and of course we need to be competitive. We are competing with local sources or other sources constantly as well. So we need to be mindful of that, and we are convinced that this is also price-wise competitive solution.
Great, thank you. Anna, I wanted to come back to you. We've heard a lot of advantages around industrial heat pumps and their integration with district heating and cooling, and a lot of it seems to tick the boxes of competitiveness, energy security, energy sovereignty. Do you think those arguments around subjects as this are understood within the European Parliament? Because there's obviously at the moment, with the new Parliament, there seems to be a bit of a pushback against certain moves forward, and are those arguments understood enough, or is it an argument that needs to be made more clearly, potentially from industry? Do your colleagues need to hear more from business or industry about how competitive they are?
No, I think those arguments are well heard and well understood. It's just a question of whether you agree with it or not. And there's some that understand but still disagree or don't care about that argument. Now, but we do see that particularly when it comes to questions of energy efficiency, when it comes to, I was just working or I'm just in the last few days of working on our own initiative report on electricity grids, main focus on electricity. But, what we saw was that particularly when it comes to the more technical questions, which is what we're discussing here as well, there is a very broad majority of people who see the benefit, who see the advantages and also the opportunities that what we're talking about here brings. So I think there is very much a broad majority hearing those arguments, understanding those arguments, and actually pushing for those arguments. But as I said, that doesn't mean that every MEP is for it. But there you go. That's politics, right? We don't whether that's a good thing or not. I leave up to you to decide. But politics is not just looking at the facts and numbers and working according to them. But there's always other aspects as well. That's why I was smiling a little bit when you said that it helped you make the argument that this was a European push. I wish this was true for all countries, that talking about the European made it a better argument. I think in some countries that actually leads to more pushback because then they say, oh, this is mandated from Brussels, we don't want this. But at the end of the day, I think, as you said, when we look at the situation that we're in, with the economic situation that we're in, fortunately, and this brings us back to what we just talked about communication as well, this isn't just a question of climate, as you put it in your presentation at the very beginning, as much as I think we all agree here that the climate is very important and we need to work on that. But fortunately, this is an area where the question of climate coincides with the question, or the right answers for the climate coincide with the right answers for the economy, for our competitiveness. And that's why we need to push for this right now. But I think what you said resonated with me as well, in the sense that I think a lot of policy framework is already there, particularly on a European level. It just needs to be used. And that is where, unfortunately, we sometimes don't see action, be it on the national level, be it on the local level. And this is something that, I'm actually very open and hopeful to hear your conversations or your ideas as well, because that is very frustrating. Because if we talk about this, and if we talk about, one of the reasons we hear, of course, the high costs up front, but also high energy costs, so high electricity costs, there's not that much of an incentive to move there. But we have PPAs, we have contracts for difference, we have opportunities to actually get electricity prices down right now without any change of legislation. It just needs to be done. And this is something that can be quite frustrating, because you said this, right? We just need to get it done. And a lot of things, it is a lot more complicated than that, I know. But in some aspects, member states, local levels, they just need to do it. And we need to make sure that we support them on the way there from all sides, industry, politics, European level. And then hopefully examples like Tallinn can be, role models for other regions as well.
I don't know if Marco or Prit, you wanted to respond to what Anna's just said.
Yes, I agree. I heard and I learned from the previous session from Iberdrola. Asked which are the most taxed products in Spain. The first one was tobacco, the second alcohol, and the third electricity. So currently, half of the price of electricity is taxes or levies or surcharge, and it is detrimental for the implementation of industrial heat pumps. So, of course, it's not a European level task, but also is a European level task, but also a national level. So there is a combination of that. But at the end of the story, the high cost of electricity, for example, is one of the barriers. So.
Yeah, and just adding up to this, so we need to move on all fronts in parallel. So if we just electrify and just add heat pumps, and we don't add new generation capacities, green generation capacity for electricity, well, we won't reach where we want to be. So of course it's an important part as well. And just to comment on the whether policies from Europe are automatically accepted or not. I think it's the case anywhere that it has to be well understood. But there, I think it's the concept of the overriding public interest. So this helped us to persuade that there is overriding public interest in these sectors. So defining that better or saying that this is the case. So I think we're seeing quick addition of new capacities. Only in these sectors and in these countries where this overriding public interest for these very important matters are actually used also in planning procedures. So I think this needed. If we look at how successful is Germany in wind park addition, it's also all related to that. So that was maybe something to be picked up, that there are ways to have a focus on certain additions.
Thanks for it. And while we're on EU policy, I perhaps pick up on the second question there. I don't know whether you can tell us anything, but what did the Parliament learn from its work on the grids report that can help the Commission for the heating and cooling strategy and the electricity action plan? If you can keep it as well, sort of to the subject a little bit that we're talking about, that would be great.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, as I said before, this grids report was very much focused on electricity, and we had a very narrow scope that we were given by the committee. So I'll still try to stick to the topic, but maybe before doing the politician thing, not answering that question, but something that springs out to me. We talk about heating and cooling strategy, electricity action plan. Then we have the grid package. Then we have this. We just talked about, right? There's so many new action plans, different legislation coming. There's part of me that is almost wishing we could have something like the big beautiful energy bill or something like that, where we can make sure that we actually think all of these issues together. And it's very sad that our colleague from the Commission couldn't be here today, because it's interesting also to hear from their perspective how they're trying to make sure and how they're trying to manage that also within the Commission. The different departments are working hand in hand, because that is one of the things that I think the Parliament learned, or at least I'll say I learned from our work on the grids packages, that while we had, or maybe especially because we had such a narrow scope, that it is impossible to think one aspect of this energy transition in isolation, because then you're missing everything else, and everything has to, like in a little, it just has to go together. every single little piece of this huge jigsaw puzzle that is the energy transition has to fall into place and has to be able to work together. So I think this is something that is so crucial for the way that we do policy and the way that we do energy policy going forward on this. And then obviously the question of sector coupling and planning. This was maybe the biggest learning that the Parliament had also in our negotiations, where we saw a change in mindset with our colleagues, was that shift towards the question of how, or the realization, I'll say, that a lot of the problems we talk about here now as well, as you just alluded to, could be solved if we had a strong, robust planning process that is cross-sectoral, that is forward-looking, that is integrated, that is looking both ways from bottom up and top down. I think, because you asked this earlier, I think it has to be a two-way street. Yes, we need the local planning that you guys mentioned here, the local where it's easier to talk with the different sectors, with the different industries, but we also need to make sure that it all makes sense from a top-down perspective, that we have this European perspective, because at the end of the day, our goal is to have an energy union. So we have to have some sort of top-down process here as well, and having that planning process where we have to make sure that we're not just talking about electricity grids, but talking about how can we have district heating and cooling systems there as well. What are we going to do with gas infrastructure, decommissioning of that? How can we potentially use it for hydrogen, etc., and make sure that we use it most efficiently? And just that idea that whatever we do, efficiency has to be our kind of main driving almost value, that we need to make sure, maybe we can put it on everyone's office wall, so we don't forget about that. I think those are some of the aspects that were definitely learning experiences through the few months that we've been working on this now, and I hope the Commission will take that on board as well.
Great, thank you. We've got a little bit more of a technical question. I don't know, Chris, is this one for you? How can DHC systems lower electricity infrastructure investments and support grid balancing?
I can have a go at that, definitely. Happy to. I think the main way in which that can happen is DHC systems are a form of energy storage. Not many people know this, but the actual network itself can store energy. It's not as if you put heat into a heating network and it has to be used immediately. It's a very large network that can actually act as kind of a thermal battery in itself. So district heating and cooling can absorb excess renewable electricity and effectively store it as heat until when it's needed. And obviously we know how that would lower electricity infrastructure investments, because we would need fewer alternatives on the power system to to store electricity or to transport it via grids to other places. So it'll support grid balancing by lowering curtailment of renewables as well, because we could just absorb it into those heat networks.
Great. Did anybody want to add anything?
Yep. Maybe just what said is, while we still have to then be honest in saying that, well, it would decrease that, but it would also increase the cost of DHC infrastructure investments. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, and perhaps that comes on to also the question we've got here, whether negative or low electricity prices are a threat or an opportunity. I mean, they seem to be an opportunity when you were all speaking, but isn't it? Oh, it just disappeared off the screen, I feel. I think it was basically saying, was it not a way, if you had high electricity prices, was it a way of paying back the investments? I don't know if anybody wants to wade it. Yep.
A quick one on the previous. How can it lower the investment need for grids? It's if you have developed district heating infrastructure, it's likely that the heat pump technology will be used in centralized power stations. So it's easier to operate on a high voltage or medium voltage instead of going on low voltage. So you have less. You have more capacity in the distribution for car chargers, for example. So you can optimize because of that, and thereby actually have lower costs of investments there.
Great, thank you. I don't know if anybody wanted, Chris, do you want to add anything? Yep.
I want to just quickly answer the question that disappeared on negative prices, because I get asked that question a lot. Is it a threat? Is it a problem?
Let's come back again at the top.
Great. Okay. I think it's neither. What I say is it's just a signal. It's a signal that we need more flexibility on the system. It's a signal that we have too much supply at some times and not enough supply at other times when we see high price spikes. So it's just a signal for storage, for demand flexibility. It's saying, like, we need more of this stuff. We need to invest in this stuff immediately. That
was a very relaxed answer in terms of what normally the sort of passionate we get around pricing. I'm going to open the floor now to questions. If you could introduce yourself before you ask a question, that would be great. If anybody wants to pop their hand up and ask in an old-fashioned manner of speaking, that would be great. We haven't got microphone. Oh, we have got a microphone. Brilliant. Thank you. Has anybody got any questions they would like to ask? Yep, Pauline. Oh, sorry.
Oh, hi. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the discussion. My name is Marcus Fischer. I work for Ørsted. We're a global renewable energy company, 18 gigawatt installed capacity, mostly offshore wind. But we also supply 400,000 households in Denmark with sustainable heating. And I have a question probably mostly to Chris, but a bit in general on capacity markets and how heating can help, because traditionally capacity markets, I think, roughly 2/3, according to Acer, of the capacity market funding, perhaps even more, went to fossil fuels. And I think we're seeing a shift. At least some people say, Florence School, for example, that we might see a shift and more flexibility, more, for example, e-boilers, heat pumps can participate. So I'd be curious how you see that. Are we seeing this shift in capacity markets, enabling more participation of district heating systems, e-boilers, etc.? Or is there still a large part going into fossil gas and others?
I can start, but other panelists might have more practical experience with this. It's certainly true that historically, the vast majority of capacity payments have gone to fossil fuel generation. I think in some, and it really depends on the market design from country to country. So now I think we're seeing, for example, in I think it's in Italy, their capacity market has been successful in bringing forward a lot of battery storage on the system. In that case, but it really does depend on the specific technical rules of each market and how it's set up. So some markets, for example, will have a minimum size for demand flexibility, that effectively excludes smaller units from that market. That's one example of a way that demand flexibility can be penalised against. But I think with the EU rules on capacity markets, it should, in theory, become more technology neutral. We'll wait and see, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. Did anybody on the panel want to add anything?
Yeah, it's a very valid question. I think that's because of the inertia in the system, in the district heating system, and there is clearly a role for electric boilers, clearly a role for heat pumps to operate in the market. So we have just gone through desynchronization from Russian and Belarus electricity system and successfully synchronized with main European grid, and obviously spent a lot of time preparing for that. So all our e-boilers are already capable of doing that, and we're actively participating in the market as well. And obviously with the addition of additional storage, this is where we can truly help the power grid to maintain frequency, to have capacity. We can power up and we can power down. We have also our wind farms are operating in the market, so we can power them up and down depending on the conditions. So there is a lot of opportunities, very exciting times, obviously, and I think this is where the two sectors actually have the most interaction and where we can see all the benefits of this sector coupling.
Brilliant, thank you. Pauline, did you have a question still?
Hi, thank you for an interesting discussion. Pauline Lucas from European Power. I have a question with regards to money and investments, which is also, as we saw in the Slido, a stumbling block. So how we saw that there are a lot of upfront costs in this type of project. So as we know, we have a few commission initiatives coming up. What is your experience, either from policymaker perspective or on the project side, to address this issue of the upfront cost? Thank you.
Do you want to start, Anna, or Marco? Did you want to?
What I understand from the public, that there are a lot of people from the purchase department. Because from what I understand on the ground, one of the main topic is not the upfront cost, but based on our experience, but the OPEX, the operational cost. So basically, but also related to the industrial heat pump, of course, there are possibility to decrease the cost. It depends of the volume. If you have a massive deployment of these kind of technologies, think about what's happened, for example, for the photovoltaics. Massive deployment means reduction of the specific cost. But this is an issue related to the money available to improve this learning curve, in my opinion.
And from the policy side?
So I think what you just said definitely has a lot of value, you know. I think, and actually in a way, that's where the policy can come in as well, because if we manage to bring down electricity costs, then we're also reducing the CapEx. The OPEX, sorry, the operational costs. So that's where I think policy can do a lot more. Of course, we can talk about investment schemes. I personally believe that they will probably be better handled on a national or local level. I think if we look at we obviously don't know how any of the financing instruments are going to look like in this new MFF, but we are very aware that there will be a lot of investment opportunities for or funding opportunities for investments in industry, particularly when it comes to electrification, towards net zero, competitiveness, etc. So of course we can talk about having support in funding those upfront costs, but I think the main thing when it comes to policy is that we can try to do our best in making sure that the OPEX come down, so that even in a higher CapEx scenario, you have a relatively quick return of investment, and then it will just be the economically feasible decision to make as industry to change towards heat pumps.
Great, thank you. Were there any other questions from people in the room? So I can't see the people behind the lectern, so if you want to actually stand up if you want to ask a question. Yep, a gentleman in the front row. Sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great. Yeah, good afternoon. So my name is Jean-Michel Moufuta. I'm just back from Saudi Aramco, where I've been working for 12 years. I just got my retirement, so I came here to network and then get a feedback in the field of energy efficiency, renewables, and so forth. So I've been involved in one of the very interesting projects related to absorption chillers. So my question will be addressed to Marco. Well, I imagine Spain has similar weather as Saudi Arabia. So do you have success stories in absorption chillers? So the project I've been involved in was more theoretical, and the economics were, the ROI, NPV were kind of like a little bit borderline. So do we have success stories for absorption chillers?
Unfortunately, I was an engineer, but basically I have not. I cannot reply you now. But if you want, we can put in contact with my colleagues in the technical department. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, super. Anybody else got a question in the room? Okay, otherwise, just to finish then, I was going to ask about the third question. Is there a specific asks to incentivise the coordination between district heating operators and industrial installations? I don't know from Marco or Pritza whether you have a specific ask you'd like to see that either in regulation or some way that there is really a kind of some form of financial or other incentivisation for this to happen. And
do you want to reply?
Yeah, well, I think Anna had a good example of this thing actually happening. So in your home city.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but that's the thing, right? I think you just in a way you can try to make a framework where that is supported, but at the end of the day, you just need the actors who are actually willing to work together. So maybe I have two examples in my hometown of Vienna. You know, we have a factory, a sweets factory. They do little wafers, manna they're called. If you know them, you're going to love this fact because now you can eat them with even bigger pleasure, where the excess heat is actually introduced into our district heating system. So this is definitely a win-win situation. But and this, I guess, is particularly interesting looking to the newest developments, data factories. You know, I mean, you had this in your presentation, the use of excess heat of data factories, waste heat. This is something we also have an example where we can already use quite a lot. I think it's about 20 to 30% of the excess heat of a data center we are being able to put into our district heating system. And actually right now we are currently working on, hopefully having a bid for one of the gigafactories. And the main idea and what they're working on at the moment is to create a project that would provide one of the first net zero giga data factories in Europe. So if we manage that, then I think we're on a very good path towards
so
having
just,
that.
Just in terms of the answer to the question, then you're basically saying it's going to happen anyhow?
I think I think you have to have the willingness of especially local governments because they are the ones that can be most easily in touch, I guess, with industry. But it would be interesting what your experience is like having those conversations with industry. But I feel there is definitely a will from both sides that I can see when I talk both to industry and governments.
I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, as district heating operators, we're actively seeking for these opportunities. So we fully acknowledge that of course industry runs their own processes based on their industrial needs. So it might also be intermittent. Data center is a good example where you have fairly constant flow, but in many of the industries, well, they run their industry when they're on the industry, not when we need heat. So of course we need to have other alternatives to cover when waste heat from the industry is not available. So but I'm sure that in the industry in the district heating industry everyone is actively looking for these opportunities where you can use waste heat, because we all understand that it's all about not wasting primary energy. So I'm not sure there's a need to have a separate additional policy for that, but rather to this happens anyway.
Great, thank you. Well, I think we're slightly over our panel discussion time, so thank you very much to everybody for their insights. Hopefully, I think what Chris said, you will be rocking if we get everything together. So hopefully, we're on the way to doing that. And I think from a personal point of view, there is definitely impressive to see just this discussion is happening. Having covered energy for the past 20 years or more in Brussels, 20 years ago, the few people talking about heat pumps were kind of in a corner on their own, and then we talked about heat pumps for households. And so I think now the fact that industrial heat pumps and district heating and cooling is being talked about is clearly a massive step forward, even if there's still a certain distance to go. So thank you very much, everybody, for your insights. I think everybody's going to be asked to vote as to whether you enjoyed this session and whether it was useful for you, even if you didn't enjoy it, whether it was useful. So we all go home really depressed or really happy. You're allowed, yeah. You can boost our scores.
All the ones have left already.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. It's all good. Everybody's voted.
A very polite audience.
Exactly. Super. Excellent. All good. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and hopefully that has been useful for you. At least 50% of people think it's been useful for you. And, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.